Previously on Funny Science Fiction.
A scene where we fall in the water and we're coughing and sputtering water, and Marcia comes on, the director. She goes, "That was too phlegmy. Let's go again." And I'm like, "They're gonna fire me because I have phlegm."
Hi, this is Hiro Kanagawa, and you're listening to Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
The podcast that helps fake astronauts in the Tesla headed to Mars get all their new comedy material, for better or for worse. Our guest today is a longtime actor and voice actor with many credits on his IMDb resume that caught my attention and will no doubt catch your attention as well. You have seen or heard him in shows like the animated Fantastic Four series as Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. You may have seen him on Smallville, Heroes Reborn, Altered Carbon, and of course, most recently on Star Trek Discovery. With a resume with credits like this, it's easy to say that we're both excited and proud to welcome Hiro Kanagawa to the Funny Science Fiction Podcast. Welcome to the show, Hiro.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity to reach your fans and followers. So, yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. So before we get into anything that's role specific or anything along that, one of the things that's become customary on our show, because we are a nerd show and Nick and I are self-proclaimed nerds. We wear that badge proudly. We'd like to get into the origin story of the person sitting across the virtual table with us. So, Hiro, in your case, what were the influences on you as a younger man that encouraged you to reach out for a career in the performing arts?
That is an interesting question. My parents certainly were not very thrilled with me taking up the first thing that I took up was music. I played in a bunch of rock bands in high school.
Nice.
I played a lot of guitar, and my father especially was not very pleased about that. So really, I think it was for me of the rather traumatic experience of having grown up in North America and then moving to Japan when I was 14. 14 is a pretty angsty age anyway, but the culture shock and the isolation of being, moved away from my friends and everything, that I think brought out a kind of introspection in me, which pushed me towards the arts.
Okay. So, and now I need to know, what rock were you listening to? What kind of rock and roll music were you guys playing?
Well, we were writing our own original tunes. The band's name was Gale Force. Great,
nice
rock, great high school kids' idea of what a great name would be for a rock band.
Would have been a great opener for Pink Floyd.
Tokyo has a really great music scene. You get music from all over the world. So obviously Elvis Costello and the British New Wave were big when I was a kid. But I was a big Springsteen fan, still am.
Nice.
So that's what I was listening to back in the day.
All right. And I also have to know too, since your dad wasn't all that pleased with you, A, getting into music, and B, getting into acting following that. What was your dad's hopes? Where did he hope that his son was going to end up?
Oh, a PhD in something.
PhD in something. Dr. Hiro on something. Is he okay with that? You play a lot of doctors now? Does that?
Well, now that I'm somewhat of a success, they're very proud. Now they brag, whenever I'm on TV.
Sure.
He's shooting off emails to all of his colleagues and friends. Hey, my son's, doing this, my son's doing that, and so on. So.
All right.
Nice. So what would be some advice that you would want to give someone who is getting into the performing arts?
Well, if it's your dream and if it's your love and that's the thing that's really driving you in life, you really have to pursue that regardless of whatever family pressures you may have, especially now, speaking as someone from an Asian culture. A lot of old world cultures, obviously there's traditional values, and the parents want their kids to become doctors or engineers or what have you, so-called respectable professions. And that was certainly the case with me. But if I'm any example, you have to pursue your own dreams. You can't live for your parents.
Sure.
You just can't. And so you just have to pursue your own dream. I mean, I would say my father is an example of someone who lived for his father. My dad has two brothers, and his dad kind of decided for all three sons what they should do with their lives. And even though my dad is very successful and has reached the pinnacle of success in his profession, it wasn't his chosen profession. It wasn't what he wanted to do with his life. So I think to this day there's a lot of regret, right? And I don't think anyone wants that actually for their children in the end. So you have to follow your dreams.
Okay. Yeah. Avoid the, like you said, avoid the regret of the dream lost. So, okay.
No regrets for my youth. That's the title of Kurosawa's first movie. No regrets for my youth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So I didn't have this in my list of questions, but I was thinking about this as you were answering the last thing. Hiro, one of the things I noticed in another interview with you is that, there was the discussion of culture and making sure that culture is adequately and appropriately represented in modern media. So how do you help with that in the roles that you pick and the things that you do as an actor?
Well, certainly on those occasions when I am asked to play a Japanese character, right, I try to bring my experience, my life experience as someone who was born in Japan, whose family still lives in Japan, someone who speaks the language and, has those roots. Very often, there have been cases, not so much anymore, but in the past there were cases where I was asked to speak Japanese lines, but they weren't actually translated by a legitimate Japanese speaking person, so it was nonsense. Or there have been occasions where even the name of the character was not a legitimate Japanese name, or etc. There are many instances of this idea that all Asian cultures are the same, so that a set might is supposedly set in Japan, Tokyo, or Osaka, or wherever, but the set decorations and props are of Chinese origin, or there's all kinds of things like that go on. And so I think it's especially today with all the awareness that we have now about diversity and the importance of respecting different cultures, that it is important to have people like me, or if the character is whatever ethnicity it is that they are, that you make the best efforts to cast someone who is truly appropriate and authentic in that role.
Yeah. So I host another podcast called Pop Culture Addicts with our co-host Kathleen, who wasn't able to make it today. So typically there's three of us on screen here. You typically have three nerds to deal with, but Kathleen was, like I said, wasn't able to make it today. But recently we interviewed Daphne Maxwell Reid, and we talked about the efforts of diversity inclusion when it came to women of color and working with inside of that framework. And she had made an interesting comment in there in our discussion with her about how it has taken a lot of years of hard work and fighting against the networks and the production companies to further this aspect. Along those lines, what efforts have you seen recently, or even in the not so recent, that show you that this is something that's a continuing trend?
Well, just the fact that we're having this conversation is incredibly encouraging and heartening to me because the last time I did a round of a lot of interviews, just 3 or 4 years ago, none of the conversations were about diversity or representation in media.
Okay.
People, the interviewers, just wanted to talk about the character and wanted to talk about the show and so on, but no one wanted to talk about this topic of representation and diversity and so on. And so just the fact that you and other interviewers are really interested in that topic now and interested in talking about it and exploring these issues, that's a huge change from just 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the kinds of roles and the kinds of shows that are being made now, I think there was a huge leap forward about 5 years ago with Crazy Rich Asians, and season 1 of Kim's Convenience came out pretty much the same within a month or two of that. And I think that was a huge leap forward. Since then, I think we've seen just so many more projects that have predominantly Asian casts, or which are willing to feature Asian characters as the leads. Because prior to that, obviously, that was not the case. And certainly, in the first, couple of decades of my career, it was very rare indeed to have shows that were predominantly Asian cast, or that were willing to cast Asian, especially Asian males, in lead roles. Now, even though there's still a long way to go, because even though, right now, I think especially East Asians, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, are experiencing a much higher profile. Obviously, our society, our entire world is kind of organized on a race hierarchy, and here in Canada, for instance, my success or the success of Asian people in media, that does not translate to greater opportunities for Indigenous people or people from other cultures such as Southeast Asian cultures or what have you. So there's still a long way to go, and hopefully, people like me can bring some awareness not only to our own ethnic groups and the challenges we face, but the challenges of those who are even more invisible.
Excellent. Yeah, one of the things I think that I've enjoyed most about the surge in this diversity and inclusion, and making sure that we have proper representation. And now, as a movie and television viewer, I think it adds to the authenticity of the piece, and I think it makes the accuracy of what is trying to be represented and shown to me as a consumer, I think it makes it better. And so I think from that aspect, that's one of the reasons why I'm glad that this is happening, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because like anything else, if we're going to try and remove the stigma of anything,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have the conversation. You have to talk about it. You have to be willing to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think obviously, in terms of authenticity, realism, we want our shows to look and feel like our own world.
Right.
And if you live in North America, it's a diverse world. It's a multicultural environment for most of us. So I'm glad to hear you say that that this move forward, which I think it is a move forward.
Absolutely.
That you appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. All right. So Hiro, another question for you. So I'm reviewing your press kit. I found it interesting that you were hired by the same production company to work on multiple shows, and different seasons as different characters, not the same character, but different characters. You were brought back a couple different times. Now, from the outside looking in, it could be just dismissed as, "Yep, Hiro got some work. Good on him. All right, way to go, Hiro." But what does it mean to you as an actor to have been hired multiple times by the same production company to play so many different and various roles?
Okay, so I think the most notable case of that would be 3 X-Files, 4 Millenniums, and 1 Lone Gunman for
Yeah.
for Chris Carter's 1013 productions.
Yeah.
And that was a huge. I think the first X-Files that I did, the episode Firewalker in season 2, that was actually a huge break for me because it was season 2 of X-Files, so X-Files was just on the cusp of becoming the huge international phenomenon that it went on to be. And in that particular episode, it was kind of an ensemble cast. There were 4 or 5 of us who were. The plot was that there were 4 or 5 of us who were geologists trapped in this volcano research facility in the Cascades, and so it was an ensemble situation, and it was kind of, as I recall, it was kind of a big boost of confidence for me that I could, hold my own in an ensemble situation with, 4 or 5 young actors up from LA who were also obviously on the verge of, bigger things in their careers. And that episode was directed by a guy named David Nutter. And aside from all of these shows that I did for Chris Carter, the thing that happened was that David kind of started to consider me like a go-to guy in Vancouver, so that whenever he came to Vancouver, he would find something for me to do in his shows, right? So
Nice.
after that X-Files, I think he directed one of the Millenniums that I was in, and then he cast me in the pilot of Dark Angel with Jessica Alba. If you remember that show. And then Smallville, he cast me as Principal Quan in Smallville as well. And there were a couple of others. So, so that was definitely, Chris Carter casting me over and over again in his shows, and David Nutter casting me in a bunch of things. Those 2 guys really helped me build my resume and build my career in the early days, for sure.
Excellent.
So we all have that one thing that is really close and dear to our hearts. What was a role or a character that you really hold close to your heart that you are very proud of?
I would say for sure Captain Tanaka in Altered Carbon. That was definitely a career highlight for me. I would say also around this time last year, I guest starred on The Good Doctor, and my character there, Paul Nakano, a guy who is, obviously characters are flawed in different ways, but Paul Nakano was not flawed in a villainous way. He just cared too much, Yeah. And I love that about him. And I think my most recent Star Trek Discovery character, Dr. Hirai, I really grew to appreciate him. Especially because at the outset he kind of lacked social skills and had a poor bedside manner, as they say. But he came to I think understand his role, and so I appreciated that about him. So those are a few examples of characters that are close to my heart, for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, all good choices, I do believe. All right, so since you brought up Dr. Hirai, let's talk a little Trek. All right, so Star Trek has this massive, immersive, expansive. You could use all kinds of adjectives here to go along with when we talk about the universe of Star Trek. But it also has this impressive roster of actors who are now Star Trek alumni. who have done something in the Star Trek world, and they've gone on and done other things, and but their acting and their participation in the universe has paved way for other space exploration sci-fi shows to be taken seriously in this world. So from your viewpoint, from your vantage point, how important is a role like Dr. Harai not only to you, but to sci-fi at large, but also what does it feel like to be part of the Star Trek alumni?
Oh, it's a tremendous thrill, especially for someone like me who, the original Star Trek, I've seen every episode multiple times, because when I was a kid growing up in Guelph, Ontario, and Sterling Heights, Michigan, you'd come home from school and there'd be 3 channels, and so the choices were Gilligan's Island and the Merv Griffin Show, and then Star Trek would invariably be on, right? So I think Star Trek has always been ahead of the curve in terms of addressing social issues and in terms of diversity and so on. And so I'm really thrilled to be a part of that legacy. There have been so many pioneers ahead of me just in Star Trek that paved the way for a character like Dr. Harai, and so it feels really good to be having that torch passed to me and being the torch bearer for this brief moment in time before it gets passed along again.
Okay, so I think right now you've done 4 episodes, correct?
That's right. Yes.
All right. Any potential for Dr. Harai to come back?
I mean, I have heard informally that there's a possibility there, but I don't know. I'll probably be one of the last to know when they make the decision.
Hey, we need you on set tomorrow. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no, it's definitely a huge thrill. And the really thrilling part of it for me is that in the penultimate episode of season 4, when we make contact with the 10C, it's one of the first times in the entirety of the Star Trek franchise that we encounter a life form from beyond the galactic barrier, right? And I think it's also one of the few instances of humans attempting to communicate with a non-anthropomorphic life form, in the Star Trek franchise. So I think that it's going to go down in history as kind of a pivotal episode. So I'm really glad that my character had a prominent role to play in that mission to communicate with the 10C.
Excellent.
Awesome.
All right.
So we have a Facebook group, and it is, what are we sitting at? Over 201?
Just shy of 202,000 right now.
202,000 members.
Wow.
And it is just filled with memes, whether it's Star Trek memes, Star Wars memes, it's
Star Trek versus Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah. So which 2 of your characters would you like to see come together and work together?
Work together, hey?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, which would I want to work? Obviously, I think Dr. Harai, being an astrolinguist and being an expert in all of these extraterrestrial languages and so on, he has a skill set that I think I would definitely want to include there in one of my characters, for sure. And then the other character, interesting. I might have to go with, I don't know, if we combine him with Reed Richards or something, that would create some
work.
kind of a... But I mean, Reed Richards probably already has a lot of those skills that Dr. Harai already has. So that's an interesting question. That's a tough one, actually. I guess we could throw in Paul Nakano from The Good Doctor and make Dr. Hirai also capable of doing surgery. There was actually an old, short-lived science fiction show called Mercy Point. I don't know if you ever remember Mercy Point.
I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
It was
Sounds
kind of like a
familiar.
hospital in space.
Okay.
With now the actor's name escapes me. He was in Brother from Another Planet, and he was
Joe Morton?
what's his name?
Was it Joe Morton?
Yeah, Joe Morton. Joe Morton was the lead. Yeah, Joe Morton was the lead of Mercy Point, and it was like surgery. It was like a hospital in space, and they well, it wasn't me because I was a kind of a villain in a few of those episodes, but yeah, the premise of the show was that they'd be operating on aliens who needed medical procedures and so on. So,
All right.
if you combined Dr. Paul Nakano with Dr. Hirai, you could have a space surgeon.
There you go. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So, Hiro, we've got 3 questions for you. 2 from Twitter, 1 from Facebook. These are guys that we said, hey, we're gonna talk to Hiro Kanagawa.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the picture that we put up of your picture from Star Trek Discovery. It said, if you have any questions, what would you like to ask? So here's the first one, and I picked this one because it was one that you had interacted with. The Twitter username is @ShaylaFan.
Mm-hmm.
Who wanted to know, I really enjoyed watching you portray the role of Dr. Hirai. What was your most favorite scene when filming Discovery?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I had a lot of Dr. Hirai interacted most with President Rilak, and there were a lot of those scenes that I enjoyed, especially because of the relationship that the very close working relationship that I developed with Shayla Horstal. But my favorite moment was actually is not on screen, didn't make it. But if you recall, there's a moment in, I believe, once again, the penultimate episode where President Rilak decides that she has to go in this orb that the 10C have sent, and she decides she and some others have to go to interact with them. And she turns to me, and I'm fully expecting that she's going to ask me to accompany her. But then she tells me that she wants me to stay, and it's a very disappointing moment for me. Right after that, there's I think there's a conversation between General Ndoye and Burnham, and kind of in the background, Rilak and Hirai are talking, and we had this interaction where we ad-libbed, and it was actually a great moment where I was able to tell her that I disagreed with her decision and that I should go in her place, and we had like this great improv interaction, and it was actually my favorite moment because it kind of completed for me the arc of our relationship, and
Okay.
You never get to see it in the show, but for me, the actor, it was a great moment, and I really appreciated having that with Shayla.
There you go.
I think some of the improv moments are probably some of the best moments I've seen in TV and movies.
It's because the spontaneity, they arise organically, and yeah, when those things happen, it's gold usually. Yeah.
Yeah. In particular, when the 2 actors or whoever's involved really understand their character and what the trajectory of their character is and what's going on. So, yeah, that would have been fun to watch.
So we had a question from our Facebook group by Larry Gonzalez. He wanted to know, whose idea was it for your character to snack all the time? especially when you're talking about take after take.
That was scripted. You have to understand, like, you know, especially in the age of COVID, but prop food that's lying around on set, there's blazing lights shining down. There's like 80 crew members all over. So if there's trays of food that are props, an actor can't unilaterally decide to start eating because there's no guarantee that it's safe to eat, you know. Especially if it's something perishable. You know, if it's been sitting under blazing set lights for 4 or 5 hours, there's no guarantee that you can even eat that. So all of the snacks that Dr. Hirai ate, those were especially handled so that they would be safe to eat, and that's not available. I mean, the props people have to know in advance that someone's going to need food to eat, and they have to prepare that, especially, you know, to make sure it's safe and so on. So no, that was not my unilateral decision at all. But it's just snacking, so it was not for me at all an onerous situation. There was a situation a couple of years ago in a movie where there was a dinner scene, and we had apple pie for dessert. And at the time, and you know, even though I'm aware of how difficult it is to eat something take after take, I thought, well, I'll just take a small bite of apple pie and we'll be done. You know, how many takes can it be, you know? I mean, by, you know, 4 hours later, I probably had the equivalent of 2 or 3 slices of pie because I, you know, it's probably, I don't know how many dozens it takes, right? So,
Sure.
yeah. That's why you don't see actors eating a lot. Even, you know, I mean, for a lot of viewers, it's a pet peeve when it's a dinner scene and none of the actors actually eat. You know, or someone goes into a coffee shop to have coffee with someone else and neither one of them actually drinks any coffee, and then the scene's over and they leave. I know that it's a pet peeve for a lot of viewers, but it's very difficult for actors to be doing that take after take after take, for sure.
Have you ever had a horrific food item and it just you were like, nope?
No, I have not. No, they usually, you know, whatever food it is you're supposed to be eating, the props people are very good about giving you alternatives. You know, I'm not vegetarian, but a lot of people are, so people have that kind of issue, or, you know, people don't want to have caffeine on set, especially if they got to be doing that for 4 hours. And so on, or people who are lactose intolerant. You know, there's all kinds of things that you have to be careful about. I remember though that there was a coffee drinking scene in The Good Doctor, and the props guy came up to Hill Harper and I and asked us, "Now, do you want black water, or do you want regular water?" And I didn't know what black water was. I thought he was talking about water that had like black food coloring in it. So it was actually, do you want decaf coffee, right?
Right.
Do you want a real decaf coffee, or do you want black water, right? And I don't like coffee, so I didn't know which to choose. So I was like, well, what's the black water? It turned out to be the most delicious water I've ever had in my life.
It is pretty good water.
It's this $30. It's this water that's $30 a bottle, pretty much, right? And it's got all these minerals in it and so on, and that's why it's black. But I had no idea what he was talking about, so I thought I was going to get, you know, water with black food coloring in it or something.
That's what I would have assumed. Yeah. So I would assume that that's also why, like in most coffee scenes, or if it's at a coffee shop, why the coffee has a lid on it, so you can't tell that they're actually drinking or not.
Oh, has a lid. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. The
You
plastic
know,
lid. Yeah.
yeah, a
Yeah.
little plastic lid on top. That way they can mimic the drinking without actually having to sit there and continuously drink take after take.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that makes sense. All right, one more question from Twitter, Hero, and this comes from our friends over at It Goes Down at the PM. That's the name of their show. They said it's hard to pick one question. I've seen so much of his filmography. I guess, does he have a favorite role? He says, because he often sees you play medical personnel or law enforcement. And he also wants to know, is this a role or type of role that he enjoys and is comfortable in? And will we see him in, well, this is like 3 questions. Holy crap, I didn't really read this. Okay, so first off, do you have a favorite role? We'll start there. Let's start this. We'll go one by one.
Well, I think we've talked about some of my favorite roles.
We have, yeah.
We have. I mean, having, aside from those, I certainly enjoy the opportunity to play villains. I think generally villains are a little bit more fun than the good guys. I guess because they're bad.
Right.
They do bad things, and there's a little bit of fun involved in that because it's all make-believe,
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll call that the answer, and It Goes Down the PM can go back to the previous answer where we talked about things that you held close to your heart. That'll answer the rest of that. Let's see. He said he often sees you play medical or law enforcement personnel. Is this a role type that you enjoy, and are you comfortable in that role type?
I'm definitely comfortable in those. I mean, when I hit 200 credits on IMDb, I actually went and tallied them up, and at that time it was 38 doctors, 31 detectives that I had played. So that, for much of my career, doctors and detectives and other similar authority figures have been my bread and butter. For whatever reason, from the very earliest days of my career, I guess people feel that I have that kind of gravitas or authority generally about me. And so, over and over again, they've cast me in those roles. So I'm definitely very comfortable playing those characters, and it's not something that I mind particularly,
All right.
So I welcome the opportunity to play doctors and detectives, and if you have to be stereotyped, there's a lot worse things that you could be stereotyped or pigeonholed as. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You could always play the corner bum, hey, but instead you get to play a detective. So not so bad. All right, Hero, we're at the stage of our show where we like to run our guests through a little bit of a quiz.
Okay.
And so this is a 5-question quiz. Each of the questions are multiple choice. Okay. So if you get 3 of the 5 questions correct, we want to send you one of these handy dandy I gave to the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund coffee mugs.
All right.
All right. If you get 4 questions correct, we want to send you that coffee mug along with the book that started it all, Custodians of the Cosmos. That's got a glare on it. There we go. Custodians of the Cosmos, written by Drayton Allen, our show founder and group founder. It's all about a young man who wanted to enlist in something that's kind of like Star Trek, but not Star Trek, and or Starfleet, I should say. Excuse me, like Starfleet. But he washed out, and instead he rejoins as a custodian to boldly clean up after those who boldly just went. So that's the premise of the book. Now, if you get less than 3 questions correct, we talked to you about all those memes we have. We want to take a picture of you, make a meme out of you, and put you in our group that way. We call it our fun sequence.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Now, this quiz is called Year of the Hero. So what it is, it's we have 5 different shows that you've been a part of. Okay. And according to, now these dates are according to IMDb, when you first started performing on those shows, or the first episode was released. Okay. So we'll give you the name of the show, the name of the character, and 3 possible years. Okay.
Okay.
And if there are any discrepancies between you and IMDb, we'll just let you know now. You win. So,
So when we're talking about when the show aired, right?
correct.
Right. Okay.
Arrow was the show, as Dr. Neil Lamb. Was that 2001, 2012, or 2021?
2001.
It was 2012.
2012.
Hold on a second.
You got that one wrong, Tim?
All right. No,
I'm
I guess
thinking-
that's right. 2012. Yeah, no, you're right. That would be right. I guess that would be right.
It's
Yeah.
possible. Hold on. I may have made a mistake. I've done that before, you know.
No, that's right. No, it must have been 2012.
Yeah, according to IMDb, it's 2012. All right. So possibly wrong, but yeah. All right. So let's go to number 2. Heroes Reborn as Dr. Hachiro Otomo.
Mm-hmm.
2014, 2017, or 2015?
Okay. I'm going to say 2015.
Very good, sir. All right, 1-1.
The X-Files as Peter Tanaka.
Mhm.
1991, 1999, or 1994?
That's got to be 1994.
You're correct.
Correct. 2-1. All right, so 2 correct, 1 incorrect. Question 4. Altered Carbon as Captain Tanaka. Was that 2015, 2018, or 2020?
That would have to be 2018.
Very good. And that, of course, is your third correct answer. Says that gets you a coffee mug.
Woo!
I just realized, how many people have you played named Tanaka?
8.
8?
8. Yep. There's a preschool cartoon animated series on Netflix right now called Zenko Go, and I play a kindly Japanese man on that show named Mr. Tanaka, and that is my 8th Tanaka.
Are they all related in some way?
No, none of them are related.
Related in the sense that Hiro has performed them.
It turns out that Tanaka is the most common Japanese American surname.
Oh, okay.
And it's also the 4th most common surname in Japan itself. So,
Interesting.
that
interesting.
has a lot
Okay.
to do with it. It's actually a very common name. And it's easy for English speakers to say. And it's easy, and it sounds good when you bark it out, in a TV show. So I think
Gotcha.
that's why a lot of writers use it.
All right.
Very good.
One more question. DC's Legends of Tomorrow as Director Bennett.
Mhm.
Was it 2012, 2014, or 2017?
2017.
You're correct.
Very good. All right, we'll send you the book as well.
Excellent.
Well, Hiro, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and what you're working on?
Instagram and Twitter. My handle is my name, Hiro Kanagawa TV, on Instagram and Twitter. On Facebook, it's just Hiro Kanagawa. There I am. And there is a website, hirokanagawa.com. Although, unfortunately, I've been delinquent in updating it. So, there's not a whole lot of current information, but there's some biographical information there for sure.
Okay.
So,
And people can always just do a simple Google search and find you on IMDb as well.
Yes, absolutely.
and we will make sure we put those in our show description so that listeners can check you out.
All right. We want to remind everybody that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to ensure that our show continues to grow and we get more amazing guests like Hiro Kanagawa to stop by and have these great conversations with and funny moments for you to listen to. So please subscribe. It's going to help more than we can ever really say. There's a little button down there. You just got to push it that one time, just the one time. and you'll be able to continually get nifty little updates from us. Now, if for whatever reason you are not happy with the content of our show today, please feel free to lodge a complaint with the head of our complaint department. That, of course, is Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. While reviewing your complaint, no doubt getting lost in the minutia, that means details, you can be sure that no single podcasting transgression is beyond his reach. Although sometimes his decisions do seem to be a little bit of a stretch, we assure you that if you can just try to be flexible enough to allow his brand of justice to be handed out, you'll be happy with the results.
Really working those
Strangely
dad
enough,
puns.
my nickname was Stretch for a brief time in like elementary school.
Oh, no way.
I was a first baseman.
Oh, nice. Yes, you would have to have stretched out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks again, Hiro.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Been a lot of fun. All right, guys, that's going to conclude us for Funny Science Fiction. Thanks for stopping by. Goodbye.
Bye.
Our show is brought to you by our charity sponsor, the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund, which supports the Wish Upon a Teen Foundation that helps out sick kids when they need it most. And just imagine the comfort you'll give Red Shirt crewman number 78. He'll know that when he puts on the red shirt and joins the Discovery crew on an away mission, that he didn't leave his family destitute and without hope, because the Red Shirt Widows and Orphans Fund has his back and what's left of his tricorder.
And speaking of sponsors and show partners, check out this short video from our good friends over at Level Up Lightsabers. Information about Level Up Lightsabers and their online training sessions can be found in the episode description below.
On behalf of the rest of the hosts of Funny Science Fiction, we'd like to thank you for listening to this episode. If you'd like to be a guest on one of our future episodes, please contact us by means of our Facebook group, Funny Science Fiction. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram using the handle @FunnySci-Fi, or you can go to DraytonAllen.com and click the Contact Me link at the bottom of the page. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode.